Hello and welcome to Martalks, a podcast series featuring the client development executives and leaders from various martech and e-commerce solutions providers. I'm Daryl Rosenstein, your host, and the founder of the Rosenstein Group. For our premiere episode, we're speaking to Tod Klubnik. Tod has spent over 2.5 decades scaling out sales teams for companies as diverse as Message One, Zilliant, and BigCommerce. He's been extraordinarily successful at developing global sales organizations and has spent an awful lot of time overseas leading sales for companies such as PTC. For me, Tod fits the bill of what an extraordinary sales leader should be, in that he has hired and made extraordinarily successful sales executives. And that, in the bottom line, is the measuring stick I will always use when evaluating leadership talent. Do you make your people successful? And Tod fits that bill to a T. No pun intended. We covered a lot of ground in this episode as I asked Tod about all stages of scaling the business and sales process. Some of the questions included, what are the mistakes to avoid when you're hiring large numbers of sales executives into your organization at one time? And who should own the go-to-market, sales or marketing? And finally, how do martech providers scale from serving the small to mid-market into the enterprise market? To see more expert advice on martech and e-commerce client development, you can follow the Rosenstein Group on LinkedIn or on our website, www.rosensteingroup.com. And for now, here's my conversation with Tod. Tod?
Great. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking some time off from building the house in Cabo.
You're welcome.
I hope that's going on just fine.
It is. It's a fun process.
Well, in your experience, what are the most common mistakes to avoid when you're scaling a sales function?
Well, I've probably made all of them. So I would say there's 4 or 5 things, Daryl, that we have to look out for when we're scaling sales. I'd say the first one is not getting the right sales team in place, sales leadership team in place. I'm sorry, from the beginning. One of the huge benefits of that is they can help you recruit, they can help you vet, and really help you scale that team quickly versus feeling like you're trying to do it all yourself. And I've made that mistake before. So if you invest in getting a great leadership team to the extent that they're budgeted in place first, it really can help with recruiting as well as strategy and going on calls and all those things. A second one I would say is scaling either too quickly or too slowly. Too slowly means you've got a proven model. You know what success looks like. You just have to rinse, lather, repeat, and get some more, great people on the team that can go and execute and put up numbers. You got the budgeted headcount, et cetera, but you can't get them on board fast enough. You're shooting yourself in the foot, right? You're not going to hit your number if you get 2, 3, 4 months behind on recruiting and you don't get the team in place that you need. Conversely, sometimes you can scale too quickly. An example of that would be if you're going into a new vertical or exercising a new sales model, sales profile, for example. At both Message One and BigCommerce, they were largely SMB, a little bit of mid-market sales, not really in the enterprise. We built out enterprise sales teams. That was a new function. And at Message One, we went a little too fast at first before we really got the kind of cracked the code on the best way to do that. What kind of profile, messaging, positioning, what types of companies to go after. And we had you could have too many reps in place that aren't making any money. And that's a problem too. So that's the second one I would say. And then the third one I would say is that you have the wrong profile of rep. You don't think about, what kind of rep do I need, inside versus outside, what sort of background they have. And so you end up with folks that are not well suited to the task that you have them there to do. And then the fourth one I would say is that you don't put the right training in place or have the tools that they need. So you've got all these great folks hired and they're limited in their ability to be successful because you don't train them properly or give them equip them the way that they need in order to be successful.
Now, when you talk about hiring the right people and getting the profile right, you're talking about to some extent the size of the deal that they've sold, the verticals they've sold into, the kind of solutions they've sold?
All the above. A simple way I describe it is they have a track record of success. in an environment similar to the one we're about to put them into. We can teach them a new product. They can learn, a new industry. But to your point, if they've, never done deals over 50K, and you're going to put them in enterprise sales doing $500,000 to $2 million deals, there's going to be a steep learning curve. When you're scaling sales teams, you don't have time to have somebody learn a new role and a new product and industry at the same time. So it's much easier if they can be plug and play in terms of the role and the type of selling that they'll be doing.
The next question I have for you has to do with go-to-market. And the big question is, when it comes to ownership of go-to-market, who should really be driving that? Should it be marketing or should it be sales?
I'm really glad you asked me that question because I think it's a fallacy. I think it's a trap. It has to be jointly owned. And you probably knew that when you asked me the question. You tried to trick me, but it has to be jointly owned. And I see in so many companies that sales tries to own it, or marketing tries to own it. Inevitably, they just butt heads, and there's power struggle and egos and hurt feelings and silos and everything else. It's got to be, it's got to be jointly owned. And one of the things that we did at Big Commerce, which is a great company with a great culture and great leadership and great products, is we called it the go-to-market team. And it was one team, and we did everything together. We did weekly meetings, sales and marketing kickoff. We called the go-to-market kickoff. We had one strategy, and we were, really attached at the hip on everything. Now we each own our elements of that, but it was one team with one overarching strategy.
Yes, there's no doubt that Big Commerce has certainly gotten very big as a result of those efforts. Now, when I think about the founders and CEOs that are out there that are hiring their first VP of sales and first CRO, they've closed the majority of those first transactions. So they have all of that intellectual property derived from those motions, those processes. And then they bring on board a leadership team that's going to be essentially carrying the ball forward from there. In your experience, what is the most important thing for that CEO and that founders team to do to enable that executive team, that sales leadership?
I think it starts with having the right match for both of them from the get-go. And both of them can make mistakes about whom they will bring on board, or, for the sales leader or CRO, it's easy to make a mistake about, the type of company or type of CEO or founder or team that you'll go work for. And I think that's the most important thing to start with, is to make sure it's a good fit. It's a good culture fit. There's a good personality fit. I've made the mistake of looking past that, and you can't fix it. You just can't. It's really, really, really hard to change that if you don't get it right from the beginning. So I would start with that. Secondly, I would say to embrace some friction. It's a good thing. That's how we get better. That's how we perform better, is to challenge each other, ask the harder questions, push each other. And so you have to listen, be humble, not have a huge ego, and you can really grow through that and have a better partnership. And then the third thing I would say is, as a sales leader or CRO, you have to know the market. And when coming in the door, you won't, but that should be really job one, is I've got to get my hands around this product, this industry, our customers, our competition. I have to go on a lot of calls so that when you are talking through strategy or some key decisions, you're doing so from a point of view of tremendous credibility and knowledge, not a big ego or what's worked for you in the past. And then the last thing I would say is to, pick your battles, right? Really focus on partnering on the big strategic items. And then to the extent that you can, don't sweat the little things, the small things. And that goes for the CEO and founders team too. I would push back on them trying to micromanage every little detail of what you're doing in sales. And conversely, let go of some small things that you don't need to be focused on, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, does it ever make sense, and when should the founder or CEO, once they have a sound leadership team in place, step away from sales?
I don't think they should ever step away entirely, because you want them to stay connected so they know what's going on. And that's really critical I believe, for a CEO to properly set strategy and be a great leader, is they have to stay connected, but they have to be willing to let the sales leader do their job. And that goes all the way back to the very beginning that make sure you find that right fit to begin with. But then whenever it's not happening, you have to speak up, and you have to push back and explain why you need to be able to do your job. You hired me for a reason, and you need to let me focus on and do my job. We want you to be involved in sales, but you can't own sales. Those are two very different things. Mm-hmm. So it has to go from they own sales and they're calling all the shots to they're involved. They go on calls. You pull them into big, strategic deals. They, do peer level executive to executive selling, but they can't own the sales function. They can't own all the daily decisions that are happening. They have to be willing to let those go. And that's inevitably a point of friction in many companies. And it's just part of the growing process.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to pricing policy and contract policy and all of that, that really needs to rest within sales, doesn't it?
It does. But I think things like packaging, positioning, pricing have to be jointly collaborated on with marketing, product, sometimes CEO. Sales doesn't know it all. And even if they do have the right answer, you're far better off collaborating with your teammates and your partners in the business to come up with the strategy and the plan than if you do it on your own, because then you won't have their support.
Is it easier to work with an operator or a CEO that's actually been in sales before, or is that more of a problem?
I've done both, and I think both can work great.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Both can be great and both can be a problem.
We'll come back to a couple examples on that. I want to get very specific here, since you did spend quite a bit of time with big commerce, and that's certainly our focus here at the Rosenstein Group, is working with emerging martech suppliers and then the related supply chain solutions that support e-commerce. And that sector has just experienced, again, a decade's worth of growth per year for the last 2 years. So it's become extremely difficult to retain and find qualified executives in that space. Do you have any advice for founders that are looking to do just that?
That's a great question. And I would say that it really starts with having, and putting together, committing to putting together a great executive leadership team that has a great culture and is very collaborative, and where everybody respects each other, and there's no let's say glaring holes where my cousin or my best buddy is actually running marketing, but they don't have experience or to necessarily do that. Players want to be a part of teams. Mm-hmm. And so talent attracts talent. That's I think the most important thing. And then secondly, in terms of retaining them, I think investing in the cohesiveness of that team, having a lot of collaboration on that team and building a great culture among that team is critical. It should be fun. There will be tension, but it should be fun. They should enjoy each other, do things together. That's team number one. You have to focus on that team first. If there's cracks among that team, then everything's going to fall apart throughout the rest of the organization. And then the last thing I would say is you have to make sure that you have good board support, and that the board doesn't get in the way, let's say, of that team being successful and cohesive and having the ability to make decisions and run the business.
Do you have any advice for the board members as they're bringing on board these executives?
Yeah, I would say it's really important to hire very intelligent, very strategic, very talented people with high integrity that you trust, who have, just like we were talking about earlier with hiring sales teams, find people that have done something similar, right? And they have been successful in a similar environment, the one you're about to put them in, and then let them go. Give them the ability to go do their jobs and be involved from a strategic perspective, offer assistance, but don't, try to tell them how to do, the day-to-day running of the business.
I actually want to go back to one of the first questions we asked about scaling sales functions. In particular, if a client, their solution has primarily been sold into the SMB space and they want to sell in the enterprise, and there's a large entrenched competitor in there, perhaps Adobe, perhaps Salesforce, how do you make the determination to go into that space? And then what is the appropriate plan for attacking and building a team within it?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is definitely a C-level, a C-suite decision, because it's not just a sales function or a marketing function. It's a company function. The product has to be ready, right? The product has to be enterprise scale, enterprise ready, able to handle all the things that the larger enterprise customers need, and be able to compete against maybe some entrenched players in the space. If it's not, that's fine. Let's go get a few early adopter customers and let them help us develop the missing links or missing pieces to the product over the next several quarters so that it is enterprise ready. But if sales and marketing gets out ahead of the rest of the company, specifically the product, you're just going to spend a lot of money and fail. So that's the first thing I would say is you have to make sure that the product is ready. Secondly, it has to be, again, a company-wide strategy. You have to have the right marketing functions in place. Marketing to enterprise is very different than marketing to SMB and mid-market. You have to have potentially the services component in place. Enterprises often expect strong consulting and training services, much more than small businesses and medium-sized businesses. They're willing to pay for it, but it's got to be good and it's got to be there. And then it goes without saying, but you have to hire the right profile of sales leaders, enterprise sales reps, SEs, BDRs, et cetera, who have success in selling to enterprises as well. One of the mistakes I see companies make is they take their mid-market sales teams and say, okay, now go sell to the enterprise, or their mid-market and SMB marketing teams and say, now let's go market to the enterprise. You need to complement those great teams that you have with some outside talent that has been there and done that before.
When a company is scaling, when do they make that determination, if they have a vice president of sales, to bring on board a more senior leader, a CRO?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't think there's one right answer. I think it depends on the company and the individuals that are in those roles. If you have a high-functioning sales and marketing team with very talented sales and marketing leaders who you believe have the headroom to scale their respective organizations from, let's say you're at 20 million today and they can get it to 100 million. You don't necessarily need to do that, add that extra layer and bring on that extra cost. But oftentimes they don't. Oftentimes they are maybe they don't have experience with building and running a $100 million, $200 million, $500 million company, and bringing in a more senior person who does, who can really help navigate the ship makes a lot of sense. Another example I would say is if you don't have the really collaborative one go-to-market team that sales and marketing is functioning as one cohesive unit, and you don't have a level of maturity with the sales and marketing leaders or service leaders to get there, bringing in somebody who is gifted at that, has done it before, and can really help bring that together as one function would be another example where that would be an investment well worth making.
So in summary, you're really looking for someone that's going to drive cohesiveness amongst the sales, marketing, and services functions.
Yeah.
When you're bringing on board a CRO, more than likely.
Yep.
That's one of their
cohesiveness. Exactly. Cohesiveness, single unified strategy, collaboration, everybody paddling in the same direction. That can be hard to pull off depending on the personalities and experience that they have of the various leaders, without one person that is setting that vision and making it happen.
Well, I mean, your history is replete with very successful tenures. If there was any one experience or two experiences that you've had building teams that really stand out in your mind as overwhelming successes, what would you point to?
Well, first of all, any of those successes are because of the team that I was fortunate enough to put around me, not because of anything I might have done, because it really does. The first thing that you have to do is build a great team and bring them together and paint the vision and let them go do the magical and miraculous work that they do every day. And but with that said, I think there's a few examples that I'm really, as I look back on, I'm really proud of what we accomplished together. One of those was Message One, a great company here in Austin, Texas, that was focused on selling to small business and mid-market primarily, and email continuity and archiving software product, as well as emergency messaging SaaS products. And we were able to, first of all, bifurcate the existing team into SMB and mid-market, put some great leaders in place, hire great people with a great culture, and put in place a very extensive training program, and then build out the enterprise function and build on the successes that we had in enterprise sales over the quarters and years that we did that, and really scale it to be very successful. The company had not closed any deals over 500K when I got there, and through the great efforts of the team over the next couple of years, we closed $7 or $8 million to $7 million deals. Dell acquired us, and we stayed on and continued doing that with some other SaaS products there, and just because of, again, a great team with a great culture. And then another example I would give of where the team just did a great job of scaling was at BigCommerce, a company that was experiencing some great growth, had the potential for massive growth and a huge market opportunity. And again, mostly successful in the SMB and mid-market space with some success in enterprise, but really hadn't focused on that. The product was very well suited. So it was really a function of building out the enterprise selling teams, the enterprise marketing function, the services function, BDR, a partner ecosystem was a huge part of that because they have those relationships to get into those enterprises. So we were able to do that and grow enterprise sales from less than 20% of the bookings to about 65% of the bookings, and now it's even higher than that. They've done a tremendous job there, and it's really, they're very much an enterprise player. And one thing that I want to go back and emphasize is training and culture. Most early stage software companies are terrible at training. They don't take it seriously. They don't invest in it. They don't believe they have the resources to do it. So essentially, you're spending a lot of money to recruit and hire great salespeople and BDRs and SEs, and then just throwing them out there. Take the time to invest in a rigorous 3-month training process. Identify the things that they need to get trained on. Build out a curriculum. You've got subject matter experts within the company that can train on everything they need to know, and put them through that process. Test them as they go through it, and make sure that they really, really are equipped to go out there and do their job. And if you do that, it'll pay for itself in spades.
Any favorite solutions out there that you've encountered to facilitate that?
No, not really. I'm sure there are, but I'm not an expert on it. We really just, we kept it very simple and recorded some training videos. Somebody giving a great presentation. We had a curriculum plan of like 30 or 40 topics, everything from market, competition, product, day in the life of the customer, how to give a demo, how to prospect, how to write a veto letter, et cetera. And we just did live training and then also recorded videos so people could go back and watch them again. One of the keys there is to do assessments and make sure that your team is really learning what you think they're learning. So at the end of every 2 weeks, we would do a little role play, whether it's a prospecting call or giving a presentation or doing competitive differentiation, whatever it might be. Do a role play with them and assess how they're doing. I'd rather have them fail within our 4 walls than out there. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, when you're in a crowded market, when there's a lot of noise and a lot of competition, being an absolute expert in your value proposition and how it adds more value versus the competitors is key. I see a lot of solutions teams that are, married to their features and functions, and that never seems to work quite well. How do you advise a company as it's scaling to really put customer value at the center of the discovery process and the sales process itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2 things. One is you need your best and brightest across sales and marketing, people that have been doing it for a while, who really know and understand that, to craft the message. Messaging and positioning exercises can be thousands of lives and millions of dollars over many, many quarters. And you don't have time, but you do have time to make sure that you nail the most important value selling points and your differentiation, your value, et cetera, that you get those right. And you can do that with, like I said, get your best and brightest. The sales rep, enterprise rep that's been there for the longest and has done the big deals. You're a sales leader or 2, an SC who's been around the block, marketing who's really, really close to the market and to competition, and just go through some working sessions and identify your most important messaging positioning that you need to make sure you're getting out there, number one. And then number two, and this is the hard part, that has to be used in every single customer touch point across the entire customer lifecycle. That's not easy. That's a prospecting call, a veto letter, cadences, presentations, demo scripts, marketing messaging positioning, the website, case studies, so on and so forth. Start with the ones that you use the most. You can get a lot of leverage out of just doing those two things. Get the key team together, core team together to develop or refine your customer messaging positioning that really focuses on customer value. And then number two, identify the 5 to 7 sales assets that you use every single day and get those consistent and right. And you'll move a lot of earth just by doing that.
Well, I'm going to give you one last question, and that is we haven't addressed customer success. And when to bring on board a customer success leader and add that functionality to an organization, because obviously renewals are key. Unless you're keeping your clients satisfied and making them expert users of your solution and then able to communicate that value, the company isn't going to make it. They're not going to be able to replace the sales they lose. So when, and how do you chart the course for bringing on board a customer success function?
I think early. You can start. You don't have to spend a ton of money or overhire for this. You can start by just hiring a great director level person for customer success. But you nailed it with all the things that are so important there. It's more than just we took them to the implementation and we gave them the training, and now we're off to the next one. So I think you have to do that early. You have to establish that function early. If you have the folks in-house to do it, then maybe you don't have to hire anybody right out of the gate for an earlier stage company. But quite often, that's an expertise and a skill set that that doesn't always exist. And it's totally worth that investment. And again, an earlier stage company, you can hire a director level individual. If you're more advanced further along the process, then it's a more senior level individual. But you nailed it. It's critical to the success of the company to make sure that the customers are successful. And that really is a company thing. It's not a CS thing. Sales, it starts with sales and marketing, that they are focusing on and going after the right type of customer. That's the right profile that's going to be successful with the product, that we are doing a good job with discovery and identifying pain and selling and positioning the value of the product that is going to work for the customer, not overselling or stretching what the product can really do. And then having a good handoff process between sales and CS is critical. Sales should stay involved for the first few months to make sure there's a good transition. And then, as you said, getting the right leader in place that really is passionate about the success of the customer, building up references and case studies and getting renewals, et cetera, is really critical to a company scaling.
Outstanding. Well, Todd, I really appreciate you answering these questions. Clearly,
happy to.
The tank is full. The enterprise software has lost a great guy as a leader. If you decide to stay in the investor ranks and the advisory ranks, I hope we see you at the helm of another firm soon.
I am. Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of advisory and consulting work, and it's fun. It's really fun. I enjoy it.
Outstanding. Well, thanks again, man. This is terrific.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Martalks. Please leave a review and a rating on your platform of choice. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major podcast platforms. To find out more about how the Rosenstein Group can help you find the right leaders for your client development teams in martech and e-commerce, please visit our website, rosensteingroup.com.